AUDL presents Ultimate Greatness, a series showcasing the most memorable games, athletes, and storylines in the history of professional Ultimate. Welcome to a world where the majestic floating disc redefines possibility, and even at the pinnacle of competition, spirit and integrity still reign supreme. Previously on Ultimate Greatness, the 2016 Dallas Roughnecks dominated competition in their inaugural AUDL season, with overwhelming talent coalescing perfectly in their 17-0 march to a championship, a journey that included a comfortable 7-goal victory over the Toronto Rush in the 2016 semifinals. Toronto has been king of the East Division for half a decade now, but the Rush have fallen short at the Final Four every season since winning it all in 2013, when, like Dallas a few years later, Toronto also experienced undefeated championship glory.
After the beatdown we took in 2016, I think that a lot of people were expecting it to be more of the same in 2017. They were the defending champions. They still had some of the best players in the world on their team, with Gibson, Freechild, and Mickle. But we've been building something really great that season. We had amazing chemistry, and I think that we knew all we had to do was just play our game, and we'd be successful.
We still have some daylight, but the overhead lights are on here at Claude Robillard Stadium off the edge of downtown Montreal. The Toronto Rush will begin the game on defense.
Now you have Mark Lloyd here on defense. It's a great sign after the knee injury from a couple of years ago.
Jeff Powell, another guy that the Rush did not have against Dallas last year in the semifinals because he served the one-game suspension as a result of the collision with DC's Markham Schaffner. By the way, Dylan Freechild for Dallas was warming up today in Markham's sister's jersey. He was warming up in the Jesse Schaffner National Night Watch top. Kurt Gibson will be picked up by Breton Tan, who's become one of the top handler defenders, and he'll turn 20 this week. Brandon Muffin Malachek to Ben Laurie. Abe Coffin, Thomas Slack, Kurt Gibson, Matt Jackson, and Jimmy Mickle out there on offense for the Roughnecks in the white.
You get to talk so much about Gibson and Mickle, and rightly so, but Ben Laurie may be the best young player coming up in the world right now.
I think his teammates know how good he is.
Yeah, and so many stars in the South, too. I mean, probably the two best teams in the whole league are in the South. Nethercutt is a guy I just wish we could see play this weekend. But plenty of stars for Dallas.
Good opening possession for defense. Not giving Dallas anything obvious. Toronto cutting off all the angles.
It's Lloyd on Mickle. Mario Zlatic with a handler defense on Malachek. That leads to a turnover. Zlatic looking for Powell. Incomplete.
I really thought Powell had that.
Yeah, not sure what happened at the end of that sprint. He was open, it was out in front of him, he did not lay out. He's a guy who tends to throw his body around.
Certainly surprising that he didn't pull the trigger. A chance to really get this crowd behind him. Now going deep the other way. Mickle shy of the end zone. He'll hit Slack. And just like that, Dallas turns the tide to the opening point. Well, as much as the Dallas guys talk about Slack, the Toronto guys talk about Carroll. Andrew Carroll came back for the disc, and then Burrell. Wow, a juggle, but he hangs on. How have you guys seen when a superstar has a turnover early? Like we've seen Mickle and Lloyd on this point have fairly routine giveaways, clearly bad choices. How do those guys respond to that?
I think for a lot of them, sometimes it's just reining it in. If you're looking at it from a coaching point of view, it's you give those guys a little bit of room to make those types of mistakes. Some of those guys will be pulled after one, but most, like if you're Jimmy Mickle, you get a little bit more than that.
Longer leash. Here comes Mickle.
Wow, Mark Lloyd calling for a pick, stopped running.
And in the back of the end zone, Gibson keeps it alive, and it's going to be a goal.
So far on 2 possessions for Dallas, so they've had turnovers. It's good if you're a Toronto Rush fan here tonight.
You know, it's similar to the South Division title game against Raleigh, because the Flyers had chances to break on 3 of Dallas's first 4 O points in that game. Couldn't take advantage of any of them. And the Roughnecks never trailed in that game. Took a pretty healthy lead in the first quarter, and that's a tough play there. Darren Wu couldn't catch it. Carroll deflected it, and it's caught by Jay Frood. Toronto not looking as comfortable as they need to be.
They have the youngin' out there, Brenton Tan, leading the offense.
There's another young guy, Jason Quinn, was named the Toronto MVP as the Toronto club team won Canadian Nationals last weekend. 20-year-old Quinn is the 19-year-old Tan. Will be 20 at the end of the month.
Toronto team winning it over Winnipeg General Strike, team which Mark Lloyd was playing for.
A longtime Toronto player, but he grew up in Winnipeg, rejoining that hometown team. He said it was really weird to go against a lot of these Rush guys. Borrell to win. Mickle was wide open because Ian McKenzie fell down. Now Mickle comes on the under. Jimmy's got 2 assists already. Matt Jackson is a guy who was so valuable last year for Dallas, mostly as a defender. Down the stretch this season, they've wanted to add some quickness and wise decision-making to their O-line, and Jackson has brought that. Laurie finds Mickle. High stall situation. Into Gibson's hands. Jimmy Mickle's like, where was the whistle there? Gibson frees up the scooper to Malachek, who swings it. Toronto made him work for it, but once again, it's Thomas Slack. Josh Cooper, Ben Godin, Jason Weddle, and Jim Robinson, the 4 officials for the second semifinal. If you missed it earlier, 23-19, San Francisco over Madison. Flamethrowers awaiting the winner of this one. McKnight just forced to throw it up, and not much Wu could do, running out of space.
That can be a little frustrating as a thrower. You know, the referee's calling a foul in your favor, but you made the throw you wanted to do. You caught the goal, and mentally sometimes it's hard to reset. It seemed like he was set on making that same throw again.
That situation, you're better off just swinging it and getting the disc moving back into the flow. Matt Bennett lets it rip. A couple Larberg brothers in the neighborhood. Chris made the catch. Gives it to his brother Dylan. And here's Freechild to Frood, and he's in. Both Frood and Coffin joining Dallas this year, even though the Radicals really wanted them back. It's an interesting what-if, guys. What if Coffin and Frood were on Madison this year? Oh, goodness.
You can put all your stars on offense, you can score a lot, but you need the guys to get the disc and then score afterwards.
When they tap the disc in before Kai's off the field.
And Marshall and the athletic trainers and Patrick Everly on the field, and there's Stanley Peterson ripping it away. Freechild floating it for Frood. Jay Frood makes the catch! Unbelievable!
After Jay's layout catch to go up 6-2, I think a lot of people thought this was going to be a repeat of 2016. But our sideline stayed calm and confident, and we knew this thing was far from over.
It's a tough day to be a referee.
Tough first quarter for the Toronto Rush.
Yeah, I mean, there was, again, good separation. I mean, that's the look you want, and they just don't quite execute.
Another tough catch made, Dalton Smith. And his throw under, teed up. Darren Wu gets one back for the rush. And they worked it down and punch it in, looking for the half-field shot to Carroll. Darren Wu, the D and the dime. Nickel marked by Martin. Here's Laurie.
Really smooth offense. You can just see the progression of where the thrower goes, and if it's not point A, point B, they go to option C and just move it around.
Tight throws, secure catches. Every once in a while, they need to make a tough grab, and they're up to that task as well.
When you feel like you need to be near perfect, that's such an untenable position to have.
Dallas was perfect last year, 17-0 in their first season. Not quite the same standard of perfection this year, Chuck. They lost a couple times to Jacksonville, fell in Raleigh. This Dallas team had to go on the road in the championship game of their South Division, but knocked off the Flyers in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think when Dallas lost the rematch at home to Jacksonville, you know, the whole league had to collectively say, hey, this team is vulnerable this year. So certainly not a done deal, but I would say Dallas is still the favorite this weekend.
I felt like the Roughnecks' perspective changed too. Burrell makes the catch, Dan Emmons nearby. There was a pick against Toronto downfield. You know, the Roughnecks went into that rematch with Jacksonville with a great desire to take care of business, and they didn't do so, and they realized they needed a little bit more down the stretch.
Toronto is a team that we've seen fold. You know, sometimes they get in their heads, they get a little bit behind, and you can see the switch go off, and they say, I don't think we can win this game. So it's something, you know, it's something I'm definitely looking for when I see this team, and I got to say, it's encouraging so far.
I think we saw it Toronto's opening weekend of the season. They had a great fourth quarter win against New York, and then the next day they got clobbered by DC. The Breeze played a great game that day and just took it to the rush. But of course, Toronto got revenge, including in the playoffs against the Breeze. And there's a mistake. Abe Coffin could not make the catch.
A little bit of chirping, whether or not it was meant for Kurt or Abe.
Dallas pulling with a 3-score lead. Into the second quarter we go. You guys think it's a matter of adjustments for the rush or just simply execution?
I think it's been a lack of execution, especially in open deep shots. And sometimes when you're just missing in those cases, you have to just slow it down and take what's in front of you.
Lindquist, Burrell. Does Toronto have anyone to throw on Mickle where the rush would have the advantage?
No one in the world has anyone to throw on Mickle to gain an advantage.
Did they sign LeBron James? Because he could probably take away his first cut.
There's Kirk Gibson. Harris looking for Carroll. Toronto needs more of that.
Yeah, Harris to Carroll, man, that is a recipe for success.
Toronto has been switching matchups through the beginning of this game, and now we see McKenzie actually switched off from Mickle. Originally, McKenzie was on Mickle.
Jackie Howe's on Mickle, but how about Jonathan Martin on Laurie? Gets the D and then throws the goal. Slotich, the bidding catch for the rush.
And that's the excitement that this Montreal crowd has wanted to erupt with this whole time. I think the 2 times Powell had a shot at making the catch and didn't make it. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. They wanted it, and they finally got to unload here.
3-1 3-1 run from Toronto to start this second quarter.
That's what you needed. And when you need to get going, it's just sometimes it can be one play that sets the tone and changes your mindset.
We've seen Jonathan Martin be that tone setter for the rush many times over the past few years. The first time that Freechild, Gibson, and Mickle have all been on the field together in this game. And well, Mickle popped it up a little bit. Tan goes up on Freechild for the D. It's hard to tell. Freechild might have said something in a respectful way. Hey, nice play, kid. A chance for the Rush to tie this thing up. They trail by as many as 4. They were down 7-3 with 1:38 to go in the first. Kelly unmarked, finds Lloyd. 8-all. Mickle rethought his deep look. Gibson.
Wow, pretty fancy cutting in the lane there by Slack.
He's slippery. So is Jackson. Near the sideline, Gibson stumbled, kept his feet. Daring shot. Are you kidding me? That never got more than 10 feet off the ground, and it snuck over the defense. A sizzling hammer, now back the other way, and it was a foul, and it will be ruled a goal. Kelly fouled Gibson. It was a 3-0 run from the Rush. Dallas with a hold to go back up by 1. Toronto has not led.
So they put Fruit on Carroll. That is an interesting matchup. Fruit ain't slow, and he's got some size.
Carroll's taken off.
Carroll says, let's go.
McKnight launching. Carroll's got it. Patrick Eberle, doesn't get a ton of pub, but he's coached this Roughnecks team to 30 wins in 33 games over their 2 seasons. All 3 losses, of course, coming this year.
The last several points, Lloyd has done a great job on the mark, and it looks like Mickle's he hasn't had to take the shot, so maybe not gun shy, but it's having the effect they want, making Dallas more conservative.
Yeah, because Mickle's not being particularly effective downfield either. So they turned him into a more or less, a possession handler or something, which, hey, you can get Mickle to be just a possession handler, that's a win.
Lloyd has done a really good job on Jimmy this point. Dallas continues to possess this point, about 75 seconds long and counting. Well, Dallas shows they can be patient as well.
Might have the deepest throws in the game.
Yeah, they're really deceiving. He gets the disc on a reset straight back, and then all of a sudden he just kind of drives forward and just bombs a flick to the back of the end zone. I was actually watching that point thinking, man, if I were a cutter, I would be so happy to play on this team. Everybody who touches the disc has 80 yards from either side. Cam Harris closed it out on Freechild there. That was a pretty nice catch, because Freechild was coming hard.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Darren Wu was out of bounds as he made the catch and got tangled up with Matt Bennett. Chris Mazer picked up. He was unmarked. You don't see that too often, just a guy totally unaware of where he was on the field. Here's Freechild. Over the top. Zach Riggins. And a big layout grab against Raleigh. Made the AUDL top 10. It's after a D. mean, this Dallas D-line in terms of throwers, Matt Bennett, Chris Mazer, Dalton Smith, Dylan Freechild, Stanley Peterson, and you got Dan Evans and Zach Riggins downfield. I mean, like, you could be a cutter on this D-line too, Chuck, and have a lot of guys who could throw it 80 yards.
That's true. Very dangerous offense.
Emmons is in. Emmons had 17 goals last year. He just scored his 16th of this season. Mark Lloyd out there on offense for the rush. They're sending Kelly, and he deflected, and a travel was called back on the throw, so it's coming back to Jeremy Norden. Athletic play by Kelly to keep it alive. Quinn. There's Mark Lloyd. Past the bidding defender. Gibson, greatest sit back inbounds, and it's caught by Mickle. Jimmy Mickle looking deep for Coffin. And Toronto up to the task defensively. But how about that save by Gibson on what I believe was Jackson's overthrow near the sideline?
It's the greatest by the greatest, maybe.
Timeout called by Sachin Reyna. Toronto trying to march down the field. Kelly wants it all. Cam Harris with his bad hamstring still runs it down. That was fast.
Yeah, Cam Harris just has such deceptive speed.
It's interesting to see Isaiah Kelly transform his game a little bit this year too, becoming much more of a thrower. That was a gorgeous shot. Under a minute to go here in the first half. Dallas led by as many as 4. But Toronto has answered Dallas's early haymaker.
Oh, bad read by Kelly there.
And Mickle takes advantage.
It's a hard position to play when you have a thrower that can put it out.
You had fun coaching the Dragons, right?
There was a couple times we almost took one off Toronto. And then, of course, they broke your hearts in the end.
Right. See if they can do that to Dallas today. Of course, this Roughnecks team has never lost a playoff game. 3-0 last year, 2-0 so far this year. Under 10 seconds now. Burrell lofts it to the end zone. And it's caught! Jeff Lindquist made the grab for the rush.
Going into the second half tied at 12s, we were feeling good. We'd eliminated some of the early errors that had plagued us in the first half and knew it was just going to come down to a couple of key moments down the stretch. Whatever team was able to make the plays in those moments was going to be the team that was going to move on.
Be pretty nuts if at the end of the weekend we look back and say, you know, those Expos jerseys that they were warming up in, that was a huge difference maker for the Toronto team.
Made them look good, made them feel good. Got the crowd on their side.
When the Rush knocked off DC in the East Division title game, Isaiah Kelly's dad came down to the field and handed him a Montreal Expos hat and basically presented it to him and said, hey, you're going to Montreal, you deserve this. And the entire team got Expos gear here in Montreal earlier today. Dallas on offense. Familiar 7 out there, Mickle and Laurie. Freechild, though, gets the start to begin the second half offensively in the place of Thomas Slack. Mickle floating it to the end zone again. And it's through the grasp of Laurie. Credit Kelly for closing the space.
A lot of times these blade hucks are going to work for Dallas, and they have the athletes to go up and get it in case it's a bad throw. It's not what you design an offense to do, though.
Yeah, it'd almost be better if Mickle, instead of sitting down and just putting so much pop on it, if he just kind of threw like a hard blade over the shoulder of the defender.
Over the head of Brett Tan. And after Laurie's easy interception, he hammers to Abe Coffin for the score. Like Slack may have gotten a slight fingertip on that throw, but it did get to Yearwood. See Freechild's quickness and closing off the break lane there. Lindquist does get it around to Burrell. And the pressure from Freechild may have gotten to the veteran Lindquist.
I think so. That's a tough matchup for Jeff.
Now McKnight is on Freechild, and this disc, Slack's open. Can he get it in bounds? He tries to greatest it in. That was an incredible effort by Thomas Slack. Referee ruled that he leapt from out of bounds and the disc was out, but goodness.
Wow. That's a key call right there, because even if Slack was down before he released the disc, if he touched it before, the disc should be all the way up there, and that's why you should try to make that play if you're on offense. Always try to touch the disc. Otherwise, you end up with a 50-yard disadvantage.
Yeah. 55, 60-yard difference there. Here's McKnight.
Sure looked like Lindquist was using his hands to get open there.
And they called it against Lindquist.
I think that's the right call.
I mean, it's been a number of calls already in the beginning of the second half. Either the referees are trying to set a tone.
Timeout called. Get the rush sideline, trying to get the crowd into it. Trying to create Dallas into a supervillain. I mean, that's basically what the call is.
Well, yeah, Toronto and Montreal might have a rivalry, but they both hate America, and we can all come together on that, I think.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Carroll misreleased on that forehand intended for Yearwood. And then Mazer, I believe that this is going to be a foul going back if it's not caught. But it is caught. And then Gibson, another flat hammer to the end zone. It's Dylan Freechild. Looking for Lloyd. Trailing defender was Lewis, but Lloyd went up for it. Jackie Howe, back to Martin.
That's big.
If I'm Dallas, I'm loving the evil umpire.
Yeah, I think with guys like Dylan and Kurt, these are guys that don't mind when people are upset with them. They might actually play better.
Laurie plucks it with a left paw and then launches, testing Lloyd. Mark Lloyd gets his hand on the disc.
Always been a star. He's always come up big in big games, and nothing new here. I mean, he just finds a way to make the play.
Feels like that's what Toronto has wanted to do. Get that matchup downfield, and now Martin airing it out. Looks like it was intended, though, for Abe Coffin, who was in the best position to make the play. A little too loose on the break opportunity.
It's always what's dangerous of throwing a huck back towards the middle of the field. It's where all the defenders are. Unless you've seen the receiver clear the deepest man, hanging up there is dangerous.
Good cut downfield by Abe Coffin, but Malachik didn't have a lane to get it to him, so he continues to retreat into his end zone. Gibson, another hammer, and Slack didn't expect it. Martin selling out for the D. Andrew Carroll came on the field to replace Jonathan Martin. McKenzie gets the reset. Zlatic. Mario Zlatic, a guy who's tried out for the Rush in the past, didn't make the team, persevered, and he led their team in D's during the regular season.
And this Mark Lloyd, Jimmy Mickle matchup is pretty fun to watch.
You could just ISO, just watch those two guys, but then you might have missed Brent Tan score to tie it up.
And that's what's so tough is how do you design a defense that's complicated enough for Dallas not to shred it, but simple enough that you can communicate it in that 5 seconds you have between points.
Scott Hasty, still the general manager and assistant coach of the Rush. Coaching hurt. He injured his foot. In his words, celebrating a string of breaks during their win against DC. And he's got a scooter on the field that he's been riding around. Here's Matt Jackson elevating in the end zone for the goal.
We talk about coaches like they're these beings that have every single skill, and just like a player, some coaches are going to be master motivators, some are great tacticians, some are great at game management. They're going to bring different things, and you're still going to see Hasty's mark on this squad.
Riding around the scooter, he reminds me of Oregon Fugues Bethany Kaler riding around at College Nationals in Cincinnati in 2014. She was out with a broken foot, originally from Cincinnati, hometown, celebrating on the scooter. Let's see if Toronto can run off some holds here when they need them.
So a late call there on the travel.
It's just been a couple of ticky-tack calls here, and maybe there was the travel there, but Toronto not getting the calls here to start the second half, that's for sure.
McKnight gets it to Yearwood, and up the line, Carroll milks it in the end zone. Good pull from Toronto. They hustle down quick, and then Gibson gets the 20-yard gainer to Coffin. And all of a sudden, they're at the brick mark.
Well, and how about, we haven't seen Dallas. You said they haven't been tested. When they were tested, they failed. When they've been in close games, they've lost those games. When they beat Raleigh in the final, it was a super impressive game, but they whooped them. So it'd be interesting
final
to see.
difference was 3, but they were in control the whole time.
Right, yeah, that game wasn't in question.
It's like the UConn women who never faced a close game, and when they lost to Mississippi State, it was because they didn't have that game management.
Yeah, mentally that is not easy to do, to get into a close game where you're used to winning, maybe against a team that you were, in quotes, supposed to beat,
And different matchup on Mickle McKenzie.
Wonder who will be the Morgan William for the Toronto Rush here today. If that last-second success exists in one member of the Rush. Here's Gibson connecting with Slack. Center to McKnight. Aaron Wu chased by Jay Frood. Aaron Wu's a guy who's had the flair for the dramatic in the past. Junior Worlds.
Has ice in his veins.
Is that in Lecco?
I wasn't Lecco.
He caught the game winner, correct?
He did on Universe. And how about that? With some pizzazz, Darren Wu to Ben Burrell.
Young Bucks are feeling good and making it happen for Toronto. They've got to keep that mentality going. Guys are making plays, no need to talk about it, just keep doing it.
Yeah, just keep letting that momentum build, play loose, let the crowd carry you. Plays like that really bring the crowd onto the field.
Under 2 minutes to go here in this third quarter. 16 all. Dallas and Toronto. San Francisco awaits the winner. 1 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, Sunday afternoon here in Montreal. The 6th AUDL Championship weekend.
Back with Lloyd on Mickle, Madison Kelly.
And it was Slack who stumbled. Mickle will get charged with, I believe, his 5th throwaway in the game, and Toronto has a chance to take its first lead of the night.
Very critical possession for mentality purposes.
Toronto has already taken 1 timeout, so they don't want to use their final timeout of the game here. Martin testing Jackson, and Matt Jackson gets the D.
Just a horrible throw from Martin. Threw it wrong-footed, wasn't even in bounds. Just a mental lapse from the vet.
Gibson throws through the contact. They continue on to Slack and Malachek. Mickle again, who has been hassled by Lloyd.
And the difference is in the mark. Lloyd's not trying to pressure every single spot on the field. He's saying, Mickle, go ahead and get the disc. And Mickle just, I don't know that he's confident when he sees Lloyd on the mark, because he still has a throw.
Lloyd comes in for the post. They were looking for Laurie, but Lloyd read it. 7 seconds in the half, and through the bump, it's caught by Quinn. Martin goes over the top. This will count, and Toronto takes the lead.
The end of the third quarter was a little ridiculous. Both teams were gassed. We had 2 uncharacteristic turnovers from both sides, but for us to be able to take a lead heading into the fourth quarter was huge and carried a lot of momentum.
Score with no time left to take their first lead of the night.
Yeah, there's something about playing under the lights here on Saturday night at AUDL Championship weekend. You just get the best out of guys.
Earlier today, they were the team that was going to thrash Toronto. You just never know. You just never know.
Don't listen to me, by the way. But, you know, it's interesting. I mean, Dallas basically has a chance to rewrite the script here.
And this is still a Dallas team that is 30-3 in 2 years in the league.
Yeah, not exactly losers.
They haven't come from behind that often, but they have done it a few times against Atlanta earlier this year, for instance, on the second day of a back-to-back. They also came back from behind in both their games against Jacksonville, which they ended up losing, but especially the home game, there was a huge deficit overcome. Toronto can punch this in, though. Dallas will fall 2 behind. And a laser from McKnight to Harris.
It's a game of runs where when you lose focus, you can use help. Whether you're the perennial champion and Kirk Gibson, it helps everybody.
Coffin looking for Mickle. Lloyd defending. Mickle's got this one. Go gadget legs.
Man, that was sick. Mark Lloyd took a great line on that. I mean, that's a huck to the break side. So as a defender, you're totally unprepared for this.
It'll be interesting to see down the stretch if Toronto continues to trust these young guys. Maybe somebody like Wu still on the field, because we know he loves these moments.
Burrell's not going to get there. There's a small weakness in Andrew Carroll's game. It's perhaps his throws every now and then lead to turnovers. And Alex with a chance to knock this thing back up. Roughnecks do have a pair of timeouts. We'll see if Patrick Eberle pulls the trigger. See, Eberle's walking down the sideline, trying to be close to the referee. The Roughnecks get into a tough spot. Freechild sending Chris Larberg. Darren Wu trailing. Larberg with the catch. All right, 18 all after a Roughnecks break. 9.5-minute game. Brett and Tan, trailed by Jay Frood, and Tan goes up and gets it again. He got hammered by Frood. Armstrong, Powell, Masson Kelly on the field.
Man, I really like Yearwood's game. I just like the way he sets that up.
Dallas got a break back to tie it up. They're looking for a hold here to give us another 19-all tie here in the second semifinal in Montreal.
Nickel getting it under again.
Laser, slack.
And there, so that's that same around flick break that he's trying to get off on Mark Lloyd. Mark does enough to bother it to the point where he doesn't get the throw he wants. And that's at least the third time we've seen Mickle throw that turnover.
And he was open there, and so it's not and especially with Mickle, it's not a bad shot, but we've seen Mickle holster a lot more.
Oh, Jason Quinn. He was the MVP at Canadian Nationals last week, showing why. Masson Kelly looking for a 2-score lead. Mike McKenzie's got it. The Dallas Roughnecks. We'll see how they handle this adversity, trailing by 2 with 8 minutes to go. Fellas, it seemed preordained that we were going to have Bo and Cassidy against their old team, Dallas, San Francisco, especially with the way the Roughnecks started this game. And now, with 8 minutes to play, it might be Mark Lloyd, Isaiah Masson Kelly, and Andrew Carroll against the Bay Area tomorrow. We'll find out.
I kind of love this look, and the reason is it's been 3 straight points of some of these guys playing. They come out with a junk look that just forces Dallas staff from working for a while. It helps Toronto regain their legs when they can probably not provide as much energy. And you're also seeing some D-line players on the field, and when you do that, you throw a zone, they're not used to moving the distance quickly.
And a call Zlatić for the contact, just an inadvertent collision there. Free Child with the disc. Guys, we talked a lot last year about in the moments of adversity, would Dallas play as a team and who would take over the game? I mean, this is when they had Jimmy, Dylan, Kurt, Bo, Cassidy, Mazer, Laurie, Peterson, etc. It's a little bit of a different situation now, but you could ask that same question.
Right now what you're seeing is, I think, a team playing very cautious. They know they can score with unders, but it's going to take 2 minutes of dump swinging it over and over again.
Yikes. It worked out. There's a critical error for Thompson McKnight, intended for Darren Wu. Dallas with another chance. Oh, goodness. Yearwood.
I don't know what the right time is to do that, but I'm definitely thinking about pulling over Mark Lloyd to play, and maybe possibly even Isaac Maskelli to play O for the rest of this game.
Lindquist sneaks it through, and that'll work. Another goal for Ben Burrell. Martin chasing Laurie.
The crowd was hoping the deep shot would go up to Laurie there after his double cut.
Hey, Brian, if you're Dallas, are you worried about the clock right now? Is that something you're thinking about?
I think it's in your mind because as a coach, it's going to factor into your substitutions because from here on out, there's no reason to play your depth. It's play the lines. They're going to go ahead and get you the block.
Alachek reset for Gibson. Under 5 minutes we go. Here in the fourth quarter, San Francisco victorious over Madison earlier today, 23-19, awaiting the winner of this one tomorrow.
Nevin, I think it's a great question about difference maybe in play styles, but I think I'd be really surprised to hear if Kirk just doesn't put himself on the field after this at a point.
Nothing doing downfield right now for Dallas. Just reset after reset after reset.
Break the mark a couple times, and now Malachek on the doorstep. Jackie Howe did a great job shielding off Coffin's cut.
This is some real red zone defense from Toronto. I mean, look at that. Literally, they just said, hey, can you take this?
Martin, does he have the legs? He does, but there's a stoppage way back behind the disc, and Mike McKenzie of the Toronto Rush is getting stretched out by Thomas Slack.
Master Kelly and Mark Lloyd are in the game, by the way.
It's a good sign for the Rush. Lloyd's got it. Jackson chasing him. Around for Massive Kelly. Martin. Howe.
Dallas needs a stop here.
Got to get that disc off the sideline.
Somehow Martin, through the smallest of spaces, makes the grab for the goal. How did he do that? This is go time for Dallas. They cannot afford another giveaway. See Freechild directing traffic, telling Frood to cut. This looks like kind of the universe line for Dallas with Nickel, Frood, Freechild, Mazer,
Wow,
Gibson. Freechild will make that grab on the crossfield hammer from Nickel. Yearwood needs something. Oh! Dalton Smith almost had the D on the under. Harris took off. Burrell sent it. And Harris got it.
Shows a couple things, shows great trust. I love this call too here. 2-3-2 zone by Toronto. You have to bleed, you have a 3-point lead, bleed out the clock.
Jimmy's going deep.
Freechild puts it. Powell chasing. Mickle read it and caught it. Mark Lloyd told me yesterday that his dad, Rob, couldn't make it to championship weekend this year because he's flying to Dubai on Monday, but he's certainly watching his son. And Darren Wu shook free. Somehow he's wide open deep, and Carroll tacks on another for Toronto. Yearwood and Lindquist and Martin contributing. I mean, there's still Thompson McKnight as well, but it definitely does feel like a new guard is taking control, led by Carroll and the guys who just turned 20 or about to turn 20.
I mean, they really don't have time to do any of this. They need to throw to the end zone.
Coffin rifles a backhand looking for Freechild, and it's knocked away. Mark Lloyd with perhaps the game-clinching D for Toronto. And he's shaken up.
Yeah, hopefully it's just a cramp. Calf cramp. That's Mark Lloyd. He's easy to overlook in the grand scheme of the sport, but he is just a premier player, and in big games and big moments, you can just count on him to make plays like these.
He has treated Ultimate like his job, and he's become one of the top players in the world without question. Battled back from an ACL injury a couple years ago.
Toronto just has to keep this disc alive. Just throw it deep when in doubt.
They called a stall against Norden. Timeout. Oh, wow, a timeout called by Reyna. Clutch call from the coach. This time they grant the call to Sachin Reyna. Norden goes up the line for Connor Armstrong. Under a minute we go.
is such a hard position to be in as a defender. You're trying to take risks, but that leaves other people open. And now Toronto can just move the disc backwards.
The body language of the Toronto sideline versus the Dallas sideline, incredibly telling. Clock stops with about 30 seconds to go, but it's academic now, and we can start to analyze the reality that the Dallas Roughnecks will not be the AUDL champions in 2017. That honor will go to either San Francisco or Toronto. And on one side, you'll have Bo Kittredge going for his 4th consecutive title. On the other side, the Toronto Rush trying to win for the first time in 4 years. The last time Bo didn't do it. Frood couldn't make the catch. The clock will stop with 6 seconds to go. But that will just about do it. And I think a lot of Ultimate fans around this continent are stunned at what we have seen. Toronto was down 4 early, but the Rush stormed back and dethroned the defending champion Dallas Roughnecks. 24-21, Toronto takes it.
It's always great to win as the underdog, especially when virtually no one picks you to win. As a team, we were really excited to play in the finals the next day, especially in front of that great Montreal crowd.